All right, today we're diving into a huge topic, deforestation. We're going to break down what it is, exactly why it's happening, and what the massive, massive consequences are for every single one of us. So let's get into it. Let's just start with this and let it sink in. Every single second, an area of forest the size of a football field is just gone. It's a really powerful way to picture a crisis that's happening in real time, right at this very moment. Think about that. In the next few minutes, while you're just listening to this, a massive area of vital forest will literally cease to exist. That's the scale we're talking about, and it's exactly why we need to understand what's going on. So before we get into what we're losing, let's just take a step back and appreciate what we have. I mean, why are forests so incredibly important? Well, they're not just a bunch of trees. They are quite literally the foundation of life on our planet. Right now, forests cover about 31% of the Earth's total land area. That sounds like a lot, right? It's a staggering 4 billion hectares. But here's the catch. That number is shrinking, and it's shrinking fast. And get this, within that 31%, forests are home to more than 80% of all life on land. We're talking animals, plants, insects, everything. It is the single most biodiverse ecosystem we have, period. You know, forests are basically our planet's life support system. They're these giant lungs. The Amazon alone produces 20% of our oxygen. They regulate the entire water cycle, literally giving us rain. And this is amazing, over a quarter of modern medicines actually come from rainforest plants. And for 1.6 billion people, forests provide food, shelter, and their entire livelihood. So with all of that at stake, let's look this problem right in the eye. What exactly do we mean when we use the word deforestation? The really crucial word here is permanent. This isn't just about logging a few trees. Deforestation means clearing the land completely and turning it into something else for good, with no plan for the forest to ever grow back. And it's really important to separate that from something called forest degradation. Now, degradation is also serious. It's like making a forest sick through things like selective logging. But deforestation, well, that's the final blow. It's the complete removal of that entire ecosystem. This is the number we're up against, 10 million hectares. That's the amount of forest we lose every single year. And if that number is hard to wrap your head around, just picture this. It's an area about the size of South Korea, completely wiped off the map every 12 months. So, what's behind all this destruction? Well, logging and other industries definitely play their part. But there's one cause that stands way, way above the rest. A massive 80% of all deforestation is driven by one thing: agriculture. And when we drill down into that 80%, a couple of things really stand out. Cattle ranching for beef production, that's the single biggest driver in the Amazon. Then you have these huge commercial crops like soy and palm oil. In fact, you'd be shocked to know that palm oil is in about 50% of all the products you see in a typical supermarket. So what happens when all the trees are gone? Well, the consequences aren't just local. They create this devastating ripple effect across the entire globe. First, it's a huge accelerator for climate change. When forests are burned or cleared, they release all the carbon they've been storing for centuries. This process alone accounts for somewhere between 10 and 15% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. That's more than every car, truck, plane, and ship on the planet combined. Remember that 80% of land species that live in forests? When you destroy their home, they have nowhere left to go. Habitat destruction is the #1 cause of extinction, period. It's estimated that we are losing up to 135 different species of plants, animals, and insects every single day because of deforestation. Forests are pretty much rain-making machines. They release moisture into the atmosphere that goes on to form clouds. When they disappear, that cycle gets broken, and this leads to severe droughts in some places and catastrophic floods in others. Scientists are warning us that the Amazon is getting dangerously close to a tipping point, where it might not be able to sustain itself at all. Now, here's a consequence that many people don't think about. As we push deeper into forests, we bring humans and wildlife into closer, unnatural contact. This dramatically increases the risk of what are called zoonotic diseases, illnesses like Ebola and maybe even COVID-19 jumping from animals to humans. Okay, so this is a global problem for sure, but the destruction is really concentrated in a few critical areas. Let's take a quick look at the front lines of this fight. The Amazon and the Congo Basin, the world's two largest rainforests, are under immense pressure. Indonesia and Malaysia have seen huge areas cleared, mostly for palm oil. But then you look at a place like Madagascar, it has already lost an unbelievable 90% of its original forests, threatening thousands of species that exist nowhere else on Earth. Now, after all that grim news, it would be really easy to feel hopeless. But it is not over. There is a path forward, and there are countless people and organizations fighting to turn the tide. This is the crucial question, right? Understanding the problem isn't enough. We need solutions. And they do exist, at every level, from global policy all the way down to what we put on our own dinner plates. There's a whole global movement fighting back. You've got large international organizations like the WWF, incredible tech platforms like Global Forest Watch that use satellites to monitor forests in real time, and really inspiring youth movements like Plant for the Planet, which has already helped plant billions of trees. And this brings it all back to us, because our choices really do matter. Since cattle ranching is a primary driver, reducing how much beef you eat is one of the most powerful things you can do. When you shop, look for products with certified sustainable palm oil, or just choose ones that are palm oil free. Buy wood and paper that's certified by the Forest Stewardship Council. Support the organizations on the ground doing the hard work. And finally, just share what you've learned. Awareness is always the first step to real change. I want to end with this thought. We often talk about saving the planet, but the planet's going to be fine. This is about saving ourselves. Forests sustained life long before we ever arrived, and they are absolutely essential to our future. The only question left is, will we recognize just how much we need them before it's too late?